The morning light spilled through the wide windows of Marianne Parker's ocean view home, gilding the white drapes and polished mahogany floors with the gold of another Florida sunrise. She stood on the veranda, a mug of chamomile tea in her hands, watching the horizon melt from coral to blue. The wedding was only 3 days away. Her son Ethan, her pride, her boy who once built sandcastles in that same sand, was getting married. Everything had to be perfect. For 55-year-old Marianne, perfection wasn't vanity. It was how she survived. She had built her life on steadiness. She'd learned after years of loving Daniel Parker that calm didn't come naturally to everyone. Daniel was charm-wrapped in business suits, all silver hair and easy smiles. The kind of man who never entered a room quietly. He'd given her a good life, a home by the sea, the stability she once dreamed of, a son who adored her. So when he mentioned inviting Clara, his ex-wife, to help with the wedding, Marianne smiled, outwardly at least. "It's been years," Daniel said that evening, scrolling through his phone while she folded linens. "She knows Ethan's fiance's family, apparently. It might make things easier if she helped coordinate." Marianne froze for just a moment. "You think that's appropriate?" He laughed softly, as though she'd told a joke. "Oh, come on, Marianne, we're all adults. She's just helping out. You worry too much." That night, Marianne lay awake long after Daniel's breathing had slowed beside her. She told herself she was being unreasonable, that she'd long outgrown jealousy. But still, when she imagined Clara, the woman Daniel had once loved, the woman he used to dream of, her stomach coiled tight. Clara had been a ghost in their marriage, even when she wasn't present. Her name slipped up in stories, in old photos Ethan found, in the way Daniel sometimes said, "when we were younger," and corrected himself too late. Now that ghost was walking back through her door. By Friday, their home hummed with pre-wedding chaos. Florists came and went. Laughter echoed through the hallways. Marianne, graceful and deliberate, directed everything with quiet warmth. The table settings, the catering, the music. When Clara arrived, dressed in a soft lilac dress and expensive perfume, Marianne extended her hand. "Clara," she said with a practiced smile, "it's been a long time." Clara returned it with a cool laugh. "It has. You've kept this place beautiful. Just like old times, Daniel, isn't it?" Daniel's smile faltered, just enough for Marianne to see it. That evening, during a small family dinner to celebrate the final plans, Marianne watched Clara and Daniel exchange glances across the table. Subtle, familiar, like a language only two people spoke. "Remember the villa in Naples?" Clara said teasingly. "We tried to order seafood, but everything was closed for the festival. You made us pasta on a hot plate." Daniel chuckled. "I can't believe you remember that." "Oh, I remember everything," she said, eyes glinting. Marianne's fork paused halfway to her lips. She glanced at Ethan, happily recounting stories to Grace's parents, unaware of the current shifting beneath his feet. She smiled through it all, swallowing words that clawed at her throat. But inside, her chest burned with a question she'd avoided for years. Did I ever really replace her? After dinner, Marianne stepped out into the night air, the ocean wind brushing against her cheeks. The laughter from inside faded into the hum of the waves. She tried to push away the unease. This was Ethan's time, not hers. But as she turned, she saw them through the dining room window, Daniel and Clara standing close, their heads tilted in quiet conversation. His hand brushed her shoulder. Marianne's breath hitched. She told herself it was harmless, a moment caught at the wrong angle. But she felt it, deep in her bones. That tiny flicker of connection she'd seen before. Years ago, when they were still figuring out what it meant to build a life from someone else's leftovers. She went back inside, her face composed. She kissed Daniel's cheek goodnight, her smile steady, her voice calm. But when she closed the bedroom door behind her, the mask cracked. Later that night, she sat in her dressing room, staring at her reflection. The mirror showed a woman who had aged with grace, whose silver strands glowed against her warm skin. A woman who had survived, loved, and endured. Yet for the first time in decades, she saw fear, the kind that comes not from losing someone, but from realizing you never truly had them at all. As she turned off the light, A thought crept through the silence, chilling and certain. Something's not right. The following week, the wedding preparations took on a strange rhythm, one that didn't seem to belong to Marianne anymore. What had once been her domain, every tablecloth, flower, and final detail, was now constantly being adjusted by Clara. Clara moved through the Parker home as if she had never left it. She complimented everything, yet every word landed like a dart wrapped in silk. "Oh, Marianne, you've done such a lovely job keeping the old dining set. Daniel always adored it. I could never convince him to part with it back then," she'd say with a soft smile, her hand brushing Daniel's arm as she spoke. Marianne would smile back, lips pressed tight. "Some things are worth holding on to," she replied, her voice smooth even as her stomach tightened. Daniel laughed easily, oblivious, or pretending to be. He seemed lighter around Clara, livelier. He teased her about old memories, calling her by old nicknames Marianne hadn't heard in decades. At first, Marianne told herself it was nostalgia. Weddings brought emotions to the surface. But then came the small things, the accidental phone calls when Clara's number appeared late at night, the moments when Daniel stepped outside to take a business call and returned smelling faintly of her perfume. One afternoon, while reviewing the seating arrangements, Marianne noticed Clara leaning over Daniel's shoulder, laughing softly. Her manicured hand rested casually on the back of his chair. Daniel didn't move it away. "I think we should swap these two," Clara murmured, tapping on the chart. "That way the families mix better." Marianne cleared her throat. "Actually," she said gently, "those two are divorced. It might be uncomfortable." Clara turned to her with that same polished smile. "Oh, of course, you'd know best. You always do." The words were sugar, but the tone was poison. Marianne excused herself, stepping out onto the patio to breathe. She looked out over the ocean, the same view that had once symbolized peace. Now it only reflected the unease curling in her chest. That night, she brought it up to Daniel. "She's overstepping," Marianne said carefully, folding laundry as if it could keep her calm. "You let her run everything. She's acting like she belongs here." Daniel sighed, not looking up from his laptop. "Marianne, please. It's a wedding, not a battlefield. She's just helping out. Clara and I have history. That doesn't mean anything." "History has a way of repeating itself," Marianne murmured. He snapped his laptop shut, frustration flashing in his eyes. "You're reading into things that aren't there. You always do this. You think everyone's out to hurt you." The words stung, not because of their content, but because of the ease with which he said them. It was as if he had practiced the line. She said nothing more. But later that night, when he fell asleep, she reached for his phone on the nightstand. Her hand trembled as she opened his messages. Nothing incriminating. No messages from Clara. No late-night texts. She almost felt foolish for doubting herself, until she noticed the contact list. There was no Clara, only a new entry labeled CM Wedding Planner. Her heart stopped. The next day, she called Ethan under the pretense of checking the cake details. His voice, bright and boyish even at 27, melted some of her tension. "Mom, everything's great. You're stressing too much," he laughed. "Dad says you've been on edge." She smiled through the ache. "Maybe I am. I just want this to be perfect." "It already will be, because of you." After hanging up, she sat in silence. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe Daniel. But her instincts, honed through years of quiet endurance, whispered otherwise. 2 evenings later, while tidying Daniel's study, she heard it, Clara's laugh. Soft, melodic, unmistakable. She froze in the doorway, the faint sound coming from the speakerphone on Daniel's desk. Daniel's voice followed, low and intimate. "You shouldn't say things like that. Someone might hear." Clara's giggle floated through the air. "Then hang up." Marianne stepped inside just as Daniel ended the call. "Oh," he said, startled. "You scared me." "Who were you talking to?" He smiled easily. "A vendor. Don't worry about it." Her gaze drifted to the phone, where the screen still glowed. CM. Call ended. That night, after he left for a late meeting, Marianne sat in his office, heart pounding. She opened the drawer and found the tablet he used for work. The screen lit up without a password. He trusted her that much. Her hands shook as she scrolled. And there it was, a single message thread from CM. "You looked incredible today. I forgot how much I missed you." C. Marianne's breath caught in her throat. The words blurred through tears. She closed the tablet, pressing it to her chest as though holding it tighter could change its meaning. The house felt suddenly foreign, the walls echoing with a silence that screamed betrayal. She didn't cry that night. She didn't throw things or scream into the ocean air. She sat perfectly still, staring at the moonlit waves until calm returned. The kind of calm that comes when a heart breaks too cleanly to bleed. And somewhere deep inside, something shifted. The Marianne who had built her life around keeping peace took her first step toward uncovering truth. The illusion of the perfect family had cracked. Now she was ready to see what lay beneath it. The next morning, Marianne woke with a dull ache behind her eyes, the kind that comes from holding back tears for too long. Daniel hummed in the shower, as if the world were perfect, as if he hadn't just shattered hers. She lay there listening, her chest hollow, her thoughts circling the message like a wound she couldn't stop touching. When he stepped out, towel around his waist, he smiled. "You're quiet this morning." She forced a small grin. "Just tired. Too much wedding talk, maybe." He kissed her forehead. "You worry too much, Marianne. Everything's under control." The words sounded like mockery now. He left for the day, and the house fell silent again. Marianne sat in the kitchen, the ocean breeze drifting through the curtains, and stared at her reflection in the black sheen of her coffee. How long had it been happening, she wondered. When did they start? The next few days unfolded like a cruel performance. Daniel and Clara met often for coordination, and Clara's presence became almost daily. She'd walk through the front door, perfume first, smile second, pretending not to notice the tension she left behind. One afternoon, Marianne was arranging candles in the living room when she heard laughter spilling from Daniel's study. She moved quietly. Years of motherhood teaching her how to walk without a sound. Through the slightly ajar door, she saw Clara perched on the edge of Daniel's desk. Too close. Too comfortable. Daniel said something low and she laughed again, reaching forward to fix his tie. His hand brushed her wrist, lightly but not accidentally. Marianne stepped back before either of them noticed. Her heart thudded, but her face stayed calm. She'd learned long ago that rage revealed too much. That night, as Daniel slept, she took the tablet again. The messages were gone, deleted, but the contact remained. CM. It wasn't proof, but it was enough. The next morning, Marianne called a private investigator. Her voice was steady, almost businesslike. "I need you to follow my husband," she said. "Quietly. I don't want him or the woman involved to know." The man on the line didn't ask questions. "Do you have names?" "Yes, Daniel and Clara Parker. I'll pay whatever it takes." When she hung up, she exhaled slowly. The decision didn't make her feel powerful. Not yet. It made her feel old, tired. But beneath that exhaustion, a spark of something else stirred. Determination. Over the next week, the investigator sent small updates. Daniel's car parked outside a restaurant, a brief meeting in Miami for wedding business, Clara's silver BMW nearby each time. Marianne read every word in silence, her heart hardening. She still went through the motions, choosing flowers, greeting guests, attending tastings. But it was as though she were acting in a play whose ending she already knew. Clara must have sensed it too. She began to play innocent harder than ever. "Marianne, dear, you look pale. Are you eating well? Daniel told me you've been stressed lately." Marianne smiled. "Oh, I'm fine. I've just been seeing things more clearly lately." Clara tilted her head, confused, or pretending to be. "That's good to hear. Clarity is everything, isn't it?" Marianne met her gaze evenly. "Yes, it is." 3 nights before the wedding, the investigator's final report arrived. Marianne opened the email while sitting at her vanity. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to look. There were photographs. Daniel and Clara stepping out of a hotel in Miami. his arm around her waist, her head resting on his shoulder. Another photo, taken 2 nights ago, of them sitting together on a balcony, hands intertwined. The timestamp glowed like a scar. 11:47 p.m. Marianne's stomach turned. She closed the laptop and sat perfectly still. The hum of the ocean outside filled the silence. When Daniel came home later, humming again, she greeted him with her usual soft smile. "How was your trip?" "Productive," he said easily. "A lot of details to handle. You'll see how beautiful it all turns out." "I'm sure I will." He kissed her cheek and went upstairs. She stayed behind, staring after him, wondering how he could lie so easily, wondering if she'd ever really known him at all. That night she couldn't sleep. She walked through the house barefoot, touching the things she'd once loved. The framed photos, the wedding china, the seashells Ethan had collected as a boy. Each one felt like part of a life that wasn't truly hers anymore. Then as dawn approached, she made her decision. If Daniel wanted to humiliate her by bringing Clara back into their lives, then he'd chosen the wrong woman to underestimate. The truth wouldn't stay buried. Not anymore. The next morning, Marianne emailed the investigator. "Thank you for your work. I'll handle the rest." She closed the laptop and looked out at the sea, the sunlight shimmering across the waves. Her reflection glimmered faintly in the glass. Calm, resolute, and utterly still. In her chest, a quiet storm gathered strength. This time she wouldn't be silent. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and flawless. The kind of Florida day that would have once filled Marianne with joy. The sky stretched open and endless. The waves brushed the sand like a benediction, and the air smelled of sea salt and jasmine. But to Marianne, it all felt wrong. Too serene for what was coming, too beautiful for what she knew. She stood in front of her bedroom mirror, fastening the delicate pearl necklace Daniel had given her on their 20th anniversary, back when she still believed every word he said. Her reflection looked composed, elegant, calm. Only her eyes betrayed her, steel beneath the softness. From downstairs came the clinking of glasses, laughter, music. The Parker estate had been transformed into a coastal dream. White roses lined the aisles. The archway shimmered with ribbons and sunlight, and guests in pastel linen moved across the lawn with champagne flutes in hand. Daniel looked radiant. He always did when he was performing. His navy suit gleamed, his smile was effortless, and his hand lingered too long on Clara's elbow as he introduced her to guests. "Clara's practically family," he said, laughing. "She helped with everything." Marianne's stomach twisted at the words. Practically family. How poetic. Ethan, the groom, came bounding toward her, face glowing. "Mom, everything's perfect. Grace looks like a dream." Marianne forced a smile. "She's lucky to have you." He kissed her cheek. "You okay?" She nodded. "Just proud and a little tired." He didn't see the tremor in her hand as she adjusted his boutonniere. By mid-afternoon, the ceremony began. The guests rose as Grace walked down the aisle, the ocean behind her glittering like glass. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. The music swelled. Marianne sat in the front row, hands clasped, heart aching with love for her son, the only innocent soul among them. When Daniel stepped forward to give a short welcome before the vows, Marianne's gaze followed him. She studied every detail, the smoothness of his voice, the ease in his posture, the way his eyes flickered briefly, instinctively, toward Clara. And Clara, seated 3 rows behind, wearing a pale gold gown that shimmered almost bridal, smiled as if she owned the moment. Her eyes met Daniel's for half a second too long. It was enough. Marianne's breath caught. She knew then, with cold certainty, that what she'd seen in those photographs wasn't a single mistake. It was a continuation. When the vows ended and the crowd erupted in applause, Daniel took the microphone again, charming as ever. "Before we celebrate my son's new life," he said, "I want to thank everyone who made this day possible, especially my beautiful wife Marianne, for her patience and grace." The guests applauded. Marianne stood, smiling softly, the picture of gratitude. She could feel Clara's eyes on her, assessing, maybe even amused. "And," Daniel continued, An old friend who helped us bring this dream together. Clara, thank you for being here. There it was, the slip he shouldn't have made. Us, not me. Something in Marianne snapped, not in rage but in resolve. She stepped forward, her heels clicking softly against the platform. May I say something? She asked, her voice calm, gentle. Daniel blinked. Of course, darling. She took the microphone from his hand, smiling as the crowd turned toward her. Thank you all for being here, she began. This day means the world to me. Not only because my son is beginning his new chapter, but because today, I close one of mine. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Daniel's smile faltered. Clara's face went pale. Marianne continued, voice steady. For months, I've been planning this wedding, and unknowingly, watching another love story unfold. One that didn't belong to my son and his bride, but to my husband and his ex-wife. Gas filled the air. Daniel stepped forward, hissing under his breath. Marianne, stop this. She didn't. She raised her phone and tapped the screen. Behind them on the large projector meant to display the couple's montage, a video flickered to life. Daniel and Clara on the Miami balcony, laughing, touching, kissing under the night sky. The sound of the waves couldn't drown the silence that followed. Grace's mother gasped. Ethan froze, eyes wide. Dad, he whispered. Daniel's voice cracked. This isn't what it looks like. Clara shot to her feet, face white. Turn that off. Marianne lowered the phone, her eyes glistening, but her posture unbroken. You could have kept your affair private. You could have spared our son's wedding. But you didn't. And that tells me everything I need to know. She turned to Ethan, her voice softening. Sweetheart, I'm sorry this had to happen today, but lies don't deserve beautiful stages. And then she handed the microphone back, her ring glinting as she slid it off her finger. She set it on the podium in front of Daniel, delicate, deliberate, and walked away. As she crossed the lawn, the guests parted silently. Behind her, the murmurs rose. Confusion, sympathy, disbelief. Ethan called after her, but she only turned once, offering him a trembling smile. I'll be okay, she mouthed. The sea wind lifted her hair as she stepped beyond the archway, leaving Daniel frozen before his audience, and Clara sinking into her chair, face buried in shame. For the first time in years, Marianne didn't feel small. She felt free. The aftermath unfolded like a hurricane in slow motion. As Marianne's figure disappeared past the archway, the wedding lawn erupted into chaos. Guests whispered, cameras flickered, and Grace stood trembling beside Ethan, her bridal bouquet forgotten on the sand. Daniel remained frozen at the microphone, his face a mask of disbelief. Clara's pale gold dress shimmered under the sun, but her hands shook as she tried to gather her purse, her composure unraveling thread by thread. Marianne, Daniel shouted after her, his voice cracking, but his words were swallowed by the gasps and murmurs of the crowd. Ethan turned to his father, eyes wide with fury. What did she mean, Dad? Tell me it's not true. Daniel ran a hand through his silver hair, desperation setting in. It's complicated. Ethan's voice broke. You slept with your ex-wife, my mother's enemy, on my wedding day? The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. Clara reached for Daniel's arm, her voice trembling. Daniel, let's go. Let's just leave. He jerked away. Don't touch me. It was too late. Every guest saw it. Every whisper became a sentence in a story that would travel far beyond the wedding lawn. The perfect Parker family had shattered in front of 200 witnesses. Marianne didn't stop walking until she reached the edge of the beach, where the waves lapped at her heels. Her silk dress billowed around her, catching the wind. For a moment, she just stood there, breathing, trembling, letting the ocean swallow the noise from behind her. She expected tears, but they didn't come. Instead, there was quiet, the kind that follows truth, the kind that feels like rebirth. From the distance, she heard her son calling, Mom! When she turned, Ethan was running toward her, his jacket gone, his face streaked with disbelief and anguish. He stopped a few feet away, chest heaving. Mom, please! Tell me it's not real, that you didn't. She met his eyes gently. It's real, sweetheart. I wish it wasn't, but it is. He looked back toward the venue. I don't understand how he could do this. Not today. Not to you. Marianne's voice was calm, steady. Men like your father don't fall. They climb until they think they can't be touched. But the higher they go, the louder the fall. Ethan's jaw tightened. Grace's parents want to cancel the reception. People are leaving already. That's okay, she said softly. Let them go. Some endings deserve witnesses. By the evening, the videos had already started circulating among guests. A cousin had recorded the entire confrontation. Marianne's composed speech, the damning video, Daniel's stunned silence. Within hours, it was everywhere. Neighbors texted, old friends called. The Parkers, once envied, were now the subject of scandal. Daniel hid in his office that night, refusing to come out. Clara had fled in a taxi, her image smeared across social media headlines before she even reached the highway. Marianne, meanwhile, sat on the porch with a cup of tea, the same spot where she'd once watched the sunrise before everything fell apart. The waves crashed softly against the shore, steady and indifferent. Ethan joined her quietly. Dad's gone to the hotel, he said. He's not coming back tonight. Marianne didn't look up. He already left, long before today. He hesitated. Are you going to divorce him? She turned her gaze toward the dark horizon, eyes glinting in the dim light. Divorce isn't punishment, Ethan. It's release. And yes, I will. He nodded slowly, anger still burning in his voice. I'll stand by you, Mom. Always. A small smile touched her lips. That's all I need. 2 days later, Daniel tried to call. She didn't answer. He sent flowers. She returned them unopened. When he finally came to the house, she met him at the door, calm and unmoving. Marianne, please. I made a mistake. It didn't mean anything. She studied him for a long moment. You said that before. After your first marriage. Do you even know what meaning is anymore? Don't do this, he begged. We can fix it. We have a life, a family. She interrupted softly. You had both, and you destroyed them. He flinched as though she'd struck him. Marianne continued, her tone almost compassionate. You thought my silence was weakness, but it wasn't. It was grace, and now I'm done being gracious. She closed the door slowly, the latch clicking like the final note in a long, broken song. Later that night, Marianne stood at the window, watching the rain begin to fall. The world outside shimmered with reflected light, soft and forgiving. Her phone buzzed with messages, reporters, acquaintances, old friends offering sympathy. She turned it off. The house was quiet now, peaceful in a way it hadn't been in years. In the distance, thunder rumbled over the ocean. She smiled faintly. The storm had come, and she had survived it. The days following the wedding felt like walking through the ashes of a fire. Marianne hadn't started, but had finally stopped pretending wasn't burning. The house was quiet now. No more florists, no more laughter, no more Daniel humming in the mornings, as if the world owed him calm. Only the sound of the ocean remained, rhythmic and unbothered, reminding her that peace doesn't need permission to exist. She spent the first morning alone sitting at the kitchen table, the same one where she'd once planned family dinners and anniversaries. Now it held divorce papers, a cup of coffee gone cold, and her wedding ring, lying there like an artifact from another life. Marianne traced the edge of the ring with one finger, her mind strangely still. There were no tears left, no rage, just a profound clarity. When Daniel finally returned 2 days later, his face looked hollow. His charm, that easy practiced grace that once fooled everyone, including her, had cracked. He tried to smile, but it landed weakly. I've been calling, he said quietly. I know. Please, Marianne, don't make this uglier than it already is. I lost my head. You thought you were untouchable, she said, her tone even. You thought I'd keep pretending. You've mistaken love for blindness for too long. He lowered his eyes. You're not the only one who's hurting. She tilted her head slightly. No, Daniel, I'm just the only one who stopped lying about it. He looked around the house, the framed family photos, the fading scent of roses from the wedding. Do you really want to end 30 years like this? Marianne met his gaze steadily. You ended them yourself. I'm just putting it in writing. By the end of the week, she'd contacted her lawyer, a sharp, efficient woman recommended by a friend. Marianne handed her the investigator's photos, text logs, and a list of assets Daniel thought were safely hidden. Do you want to fight hard? The lawyer asked. Marianne smiled faintly. No, I want to end it with precision. The woman nodded. That's often more effective. The news spread fast. The Parker wedding scandal, they called it. Neighbors whispered, acquaintances speculated, and people she hadn't spoken to in years reached out with performative sympathy. But Marianne didn't care anymore. Her silence wasn't shame. It was self-preservation. Ethan and Grace came to visit one evening. Grace's eyes were kind but uncertain, as if afraid to say the wrong thing. Ethan, though, was resolute. Mom, I'm selling my share in Dad's firm, he said. I can't work with him anymore. Marianne's heart swelled with both pride and sadness. You don't have to do that for me. I'm not, he said. I'm doing it because I can't respect him after what he did to you. She touched his hand gently. Then, do it for yourself, not for revenge. We can't heal while holding on to hate. Grace squeezed her shoulder. You're stronger than I think I'd ever be. Marianne smiled. Strength doesn't come from never breaking, dear. It comes from knowing how to build again. Weeks passed. The ocean outside her window changed colors with the season, soft blues fading into deeper grays. Marianne spent her days rediscovering things she'd forgotten she loved. Morning walks, watercolor painting, cooking for herself without needing anyone's approval. One afternoon, she received an envelope in the mail. Inside was a neatly typed letter on cream stationery. Mrs. Parker, you don't know me, but I am Clara's ex-husband. I wanted to thank you for what you did. You exposed more than one truth that day and freed more than one person. She's been doing this for years. You didn't just reclaim your dignity. You reclaimed ours too. With respect, Edward Sinclair. Marianne read it twice, then smiled. She set the letter on the table beside her ring. It felt poetic, that her liberation had echoed beyond her own story. A month later, she stood once again on the veranda overlooking the sea, the same spot where the story had begun. The air was cooler now, tinged with salt and serenity. The ocean stretched endlessly, as if offering her a clean slate. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, letting the sound of the waves wash through her like forgiveness. Daniel had moved out. The divorce was nearly finalized. The estate, once filled with his voice and Clara's laughter, now belonged wholly to her. Silent, peaceful, alive again. She whispered into the wind, almost to herself, I didn't lose a husband. I lost a liar. A slow smile curved her lips. The woman who had once lived in fear of being replaced now stood surrounded by proof that no one could ever take her place. Not in her home, not in her son's heart, not in her own life. That evening, as the sun sank low, she wrote a short note in her journal. One final line to close the chapter. Sometimes God doesn't destroy what's fake. He lets it destroy itself, and then hands you the peace you should have claimed long ago. She closed the book, set it on the table beside her tea, and watched the horizon fade into gold. For the first time in years, Marianne wasn't waiting for anyone. She was already home.